Hello, everybody, and today we are going to do lesson 6 of Unit 3, which is calculating slope. Our objective is to be able to calculate slope from 2 points, and we know we were successful today if I can describe slope from 2 points, and I can calculate positive and negative slopes given 2 points on a line. So we're going to start off with our first activity, which is towards a more general slope formula. So here we have 4 points. It says, let's figure out the slope of the line that passes through each pair of points. So, if we remember that finding slope, we're going to look at the vertical distance, and we're dividing that by the horizontal distance. So for each one of these, let's practice doing that. Now, first we need to understand, again, what vertical and horizontal is referring to. When we're talking about our vertical distance, that is referring to the numbers that are about the y-axis. And when we're talking about the horizontal distance, that's talking about the numbers that's on the x-axis. Okay? Let's look at our first point. If we recall from earlier lessons and using what we have written here, we're going to look at our vertical, which is our y-axis, which is referring to our y values, and our horizontal, which is our x-axis, which refers to my x values. So if I look at my y's, and I look at from 4, that gives me 3, and then 12 minus 7 gives me 4. So my slope for this line, or these ordered pairs, is 3/4. So basically, you can look at it as, how did I move from 4 to 1? I went down 3. And how I moved from 12 to 7? I went down 4, so 3/4. So our next one, I know in previous lessons we did look at a more formula type way, which is kind of what I did here. I just didn't emphasize the formula. I was just trying to emphasize something else. But here, let's go ahead and get some practice using that formula there. Now, if you remember when the formula was introduced to you, it says that you have to make sure that you do everything the same. So if I use this y first, then I have to use this x first. If I use this y first, then I have to use that x first. It really doesn't matter, as long as you're consistent. So I'm going to use -8 first, and I'm subtracted from the other y, and 7 minus 4. Here, we have to go back and remember our subtraction rules for integers. When I'm subtracting two integers, I'm going to use copy, change, opposite. That stays, that's the copy. Subtraction changes to addition. And the opposite of -11 is +11. So now my question is -8 plus 11, which is a +3. And then 7 minus 4 is 3. 3 divided by 3. My slope for this question is 1. 3. I have 1, 2, and 603. That's a really large number, but it doesn't really matter how big or small the numbers are. You just have to be consistent in what you do. So if I use this y first, again, I have to use that x first. So I'm going to do 3 minus 2 over 600 minus 1. So 3 minus 2 gives me 1. 600 minus 1 gives me 599. So my slope is 1 over 599. So hopefully you guys are getting the hang of finding the slope using what we have learned in previous lessons. And now our last one, I have 37, 40, and 30, 33. So if I subtract, again, keeping in mind which is first and which is last, I'm going to do 33 first, minus 40, and 30 minus 37. 33 minus 40 gives me a negative number, and that's negative 7. And 30 minus a negative 37 also gives me a negative 7. So negative 7 divided by negative 7 gives me a positive 1 as my slope. Okay, now let's move on to these next 3 questions, which I will give you guys some time on your own to complete. You're going to answer questions 1, 2, and 3 and use this graph to help you to answer those questions. You may pause the video at this time and unpause it when you are done. Hopefully you paused the video and allowed yourself some time to complete the question on your own. What I'm going to do is let me zoom in some so I can use this graph. All right, so question number 1, clumsy me. Question number 1 tells us to plot the points 1, 11, and 8, and 2. So let's do exactly that. Let's plot these 2 points. Let me use pink. So here's 1, 11. And here's 8 and 2, right about there. And it says use a ruler to draw the line that passes through them. Well, I don't necessarily have a ruler, but I am going to try my best to draw my line that goes through them. All right, that's not a perfectly straight line, but if you guys are using a ruler, it would be. All right, so we plotted the points. And question number 2 says, without calculating, do you expect the slope to be positive or negative, and how can you tell? Well, if we look at the line here, and you refer back to the activity that you did in lesson 5, this line seems to be going downhill. So I would say that this is an example of a negative slope because the line is going downward. Or you can use the word downhill. All right, and now it tells us to actually calculate the slope of the graph. So you can calculate this 2 ways. If you actually drew a straight line, you could calculate it by doing rise over run, or you can use the slope formula to do so. You guys are just going to have to excuse that. My daughter's here right at this moment. So since my graph isn't showing a perfectly straight line, we can use what we've done with the first 4 examples, which is doing a formula in which that we discovered. So if I do 2 minus 11 over 8 minus 1, that should give me what my slope is. And if I did rise over run, I would have gotten the same thing. So 2 minus 11 is negative 9, and 8 minus 1 is 7. So my slope here is negative 9/7. And although this is an improper fraction, you will keep it an improper fraction as well. Now, I guess we could do it from my graph, because I could just use my 2 points that I made. And so let's do that just to verify that our slope is negative 9/7. So my rise in this case is going to go downward, which is another reason why it's negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my rise was negative 9. And now my run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So whether I did it on my graph or use a formula, I should have got the same slope, which is negative 9/7. So zooming back out, how does sketching a line tell you whether the slope is positive or negative? Well, there are some things you should notice when you are sketching the line. The direction is the main thing that tells you whether you have a positive or negative slope. So if the line goes up and to the right, that's a positive slope. If the line goes down and to the left, that is a negative slope. Up and right. I'm sorry, you guys. Down and right, too. So up and to the right, down and to the right. Not down and to the left. So up and to the right, down and to the right would give me a negative slope. When we're using 2 points to calculate the slope of a line, care needs to be taken to subtract the x and y values in the same order. Order matters, you guys. It matters a lot. Right. So, for example, again, if I have I'm going to just use some arbitrary letters just to emphasize how important order is. This is the correct way of doing it. This is the correct way. So, yes, follow this. This is not the correct way. And reason is C and D. Sorry, you guys. C and D are in the same ordered pair, so they are first. A and B are in the same ordered pair, they are second. Here you have D paired up with A, and that is not what your ordered pairs have here at all. And so with that, you will not get the correct slope. That's why order matters. So we're going to practice just a little bit more of finding slope with 2 points. What I want you guys to do is take some time, pause the video, and find the slope of these 4 points. Click play when you are finished. All right, I hope you guys had enough time to complete these questions. Hopefully you paused so that you had the time to complete. So what we're going to do now is just to make sure that we understand how to find the slope, we're going to look at find the slope of these 4 points. Hopefully you guys paused the video and were able to get your answers. So let's go over each pair of points. Let's look at the red ones first. So if I found what we've done before, I would do 1 minus 4 over 0 minus 5. If I was to subtract this, 1 minus 4, that's a negative 3. 0 minus 5 is a negative 5. So my slope for this point is 3/5. Negative divided by negative gives me positive. So now let's look at our purple. I would do negative 7 minus 2 over 1 minus negative 4. Negative 7 minus 2 becomes negative 9. 1 minus negative 4 becomes a positive 5. So my slope here is negative 9/5. And what you should notice, you guys, is that fractions for slopes, if it's improper, you leave it improper. You don't change it to a mixed number. For the blue, I would do 4 minus 6. And then I would do negative 2 minus a negative 3. 4 minus 6 is a negative 2. That changes. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1. So my slope is negative 2. There, we have a whole number for a change. And then the last one was the green points. I would do negative 5 minus 3 and negative 4 minus 0. Negative 5 minus 3 gives me a negative 8. Negative 4 minus 0 is negative 4. So my slope would be a positive 2. All right, so there's just a quick go through of finding the slope for those points. Hopefully you got those answers. If so, round of applause for you. If not, I will go back and look at what I just did there, and maybe you'll be able to point out where your errors was. All right, so our question here we have another graph, but our question here is slightly different. It says knowing one point is not enough information, and only knowing the slope is not information. Why is that? Well, it's not enough information because if you only have one point, you can't find the slope. In order to find the slope, you have to have 2 points. I'm sorry. I wrote 2, now I'm going to write 2 again. So in order to have or find the slope, you have to have 2 points. You have to have. Isn't that funny how that looks? So that's why only having 1 point is not enough. It will not tell you what your slope is. You won't even know where you're going, any of those things. And only knowing the slope, if I only know the slope, well, you have no idea where to start or finish. And the reason for that is you don't know what point was created to make or create that slope. So that's why having one or the other is not enough. You have to have both. I either have to have 1 point in the slope or 2 points. But other than that, you will not know enough information to even do anything with the points or even with the slope. So again, you can't have only 1 point because you can't find the slope. You have to have 2 points in order to find the slope. And you can't just have the slope because you don't know where you started or where you're ending or where you're going for that matter. And our last question of the day is, if you know the coordinates of 2 points on a line, how can you tell if it has a positive or negative slope? So let's see how to tell if I was about to say graph, but it says how to tell if 2 points have a positive or negative slope. Well, one way you can tell is by sketching a graph. If you draw the graph is probably the quickest way that you can, quickest thing you can use to determine whether or not the slope of 2 points is positive or negative. No calculations needed, just graph paper and draw a line. And the other way is by using what we've been using, which is our slope formula, which is our vertical over our horizontal when we subtract those 2 points. So hopefully by the end of this lesson, you guys have a better idea as to how to calculate the slope between 2 points and how to determine whether or not the slope of a line is positive or negative. There are lesson summaries attached to this lesson, just in case you need some additional help in understanding something. So again, hopefully you were able to look at a graph and tell if it's positive or negative and explain how you know that it's positive or negative. And hopefully you can possibly give some situation in which a graph would have a negative slope. So at this time, you guys can work on your practice problems and then your cool down. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Have a good day.